Hi, my name is Alexis Willis. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and I am interested in teaching English to students in China. So, a little bit about myself. As I mentioned, I'm from Chicago, Illinois, grew up there, but I've also had the privilege to travel in different parts of Illinois and also travel outside the country. I have a bachelor's degree in theater. I'm a visual and performing artist. I love the visual and performing arts, and even currently, right now, I'm employed at the Boys and Girls Club, and I've been able to inspire the kids, encourage them in music, teach them with a little more creativity. But I've definitely been able to bring my experience as a performer into the classroom and into after school activities. As far as my experience working with youth, I've worked at summer camps and have basically supervised kids for 24/7 for weeks on end at a summer camp that was specifically for leadership training for the youth. At that time, I worked with junior high, so ages 11 and 12, sometimes 10-year-olds, sometimes 13-year-olds. And I did that for almost three consecutive summers. So that is a big chunk of my youth experience. Again, because that summer camp experience, it was 24/7 basically for like 10 weeks out of the summer, just being around kids day in and day out, mentoring them, teaching them good character, encouraging them in education, and just getting them to think about what they could possibly do as far as their career. Like I mentioned earlier, I've been working with the Boys and Girls Club for about 5 months now, specifically working with fourth graders. And again, I've been able to use my experience as a performer and just my passion for education personally, bringing that into the classroom or after school space, whatever that may be. I'm 28 years old, just had a birthday in November, yay. But I love travel and culture. I love learning about basically places beyond my specific circle. That got instilled in me at a very early age. I remember I grew up in Mississippi in my very, very early years before moving to Chicago. And I was kind of by myself a lot, didn't really have any neighbors because we were out in the country. And I basically taught myself to write stories, taught myself to draw, played with my dolls, was outside, basically had a more isolated childhood in the very beginning. But then once fifth grade rolled around and we moved, I was able to meet people who were from other countries. Like I met students who appeared to be African American like me, and it turns out they were actually from Africa, and they could tell me what specific countries they were from, and that was really exciting. I also met some students who were from Serbia, some people who were Italian, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Colombian. Basically, my world started to expand when it came to meeting people, classmates. We were young, but they could tell me, oh, something about their family. They could tell me a little bit about their culture. So that really impacted me and made me realize that there are all kinds of people in the world with different experiences. And for me, the best way to truly experience a culture is to travel and go there. I can read about them, and that's great too. There's media, but sometimes media can steer you toward a certain direction and get you to think something very specific about a particular country and culture. And so for me, I've always felt the best way would be to interact with people, get to know them personally, and not always just solely settle for the stereotypes we may have been fed through media or even our own family about particular people groups. My interest with China, to be honest, I don't know as much about China as some other groups of people and countries I've studied, which is why I'm interested in coming there personally, because I know that China is a very large country. It's really vast, has a lot of cultures, provinces, and just like a rich, very rich history, and is also very impactful in our global society today. I definitely don't want to undermine China's global impact. And so I think it would be a great opportunity to visit there. I was reading an article kind of trying to find out why exactly there's been an increase for ESL over in China. And I was reading about how mothers or parents who may be in their 30s and 40s got exposure to the global world, and that's what they want for their children. They want to make sure that their children has opportunities, and English is a great route for that. As someone who was born in the United States, if I could go to China, I view that as a great opportunity for me to expand my horizons. So I definitely understand that. And again, being someone who loves travel and culture, I think it's really important. If I could learn several languages, that's important to me. I'm currently working on becoming fluent in Spanish. But if I could definitely learn other languages besides English and Spanish, I think that'll expand my world. And I think it's similar to what Chinese parents want for their children, opportunity and just the chance to have options wherever they go. Like I said before, I'm really passionate about the arts, entertainment, and it's definitely been a great tool in the classroom. If I could do a demo really quick. So, as I mentioned earlier, I have fourth graders that I work with for the Boys and Girls Club. And for the past several weeks and months, they always ask me, what time is it? What time is it? Now, sometimes there's a classroom and it has a clock on the wall, but they don't pay attention to the clock on the wall. They see my big watch that they think is super fancy and expensive, and they're like, tell us what time it is with your fancy watch. So one day I decided, hey, you guys may be in fourth grade, but I'm going to talk to you about how to tell time. So here's a brief demo of kind of what I did with my kids. So the first thing I pointed out with them is how typically clocks are round. And time is important because it keeps us on a schedule. It makes sure that we are where we're supposed to be. It helps us to connect with other people. Their parents have jobs and they have to be there at a certain time. They're at school and they take certain classes at certain times. So basically letting them know that time is very much a part of our culture and society and just around the world. So you have a round clock here. And what I pointed out to them was that the clock will have specific markers or lines on it. Now, at the very, very top is the number 12. Straight at the bottom is the number 6. To the right, we have the number 3. And then to the left, we have the number 9. So I told them it's very important that you remember 12 is at the very top, 6 is at the bottom, 3 is to the right, and 9 is to the left. Always remember these markers. Now, next, what's important about the clock is that typically clocks have 2 hands or 2 dials. And there are these lines here. There's a little line and there's a big line. And if I were to grab this clipboard and marker, that way I can draw on this for you guys. So, I'll scoot in closer. So I would write 12 here, 3, 6, and 9. And typically in the middle, we have the dials or the hands. And you'll have a little hand, and that points to the hour. And then you'll have a bigger hand that points to the minutes. It's very important that we distinguish what the little hand looks like and what the big hand looks like. So right now, it could be 12:15. You know that it's 12:15 because the little hand is pointing to the 12 and the big hand is pointing to the 3. The 3 represents 15 minutes, but we'll talk about that later on. So that's what I went over with them, and I basically had them do an activity where I took a ruler, and after labeling the rest of the numbers on the clock, I would point to it, and they would tell me what hour that represented. So let's go ahead and fill that out. 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 11 o'clock. These numbers around the clock never change. 12 is always at the top, 1 is always next, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That never changes. So again, I had them do a quick activity, and I was doing this on a dry erase board. So I took the ruler and I would point to the different numbers or the different lines, and they would tell me what hour that represented. I also established with my kids that there are 24 hours in a day. And that's why you have all these spaces. Now, you have 12 spaces for the hours. And what happens is you have 12 hours dedicated to the day and 12 hours dedicated to the night. So I just made sure they understood there are 24 hours in a day. And with practice, they'll be able to understand, okay, it's morning, so that must mean it's 12 during the day. Versus if it's at night, they'll know it's 12 at night. But we still use these same 12 numbers. Then once I started talking to them about the large hand and how that represents minutes, I went over with them that 12, when you see the short hand pointing to the numbers, and the big hand is also pointing to the 12, that means it's that hour. So for example, the little hand here is pointing to the 12. If I were to draw the big hand here as well, and again, you can see the little hand and the big hand, this means that it's 12 o'clock on the hour. If I were to draw the little hand pointing toward the 1, again, the little hand represents the hour. The big hand represents the minutes. But each time it's a new hour and it's starting over, the big hand will be at the number 12. So I went over that with them, just making sure they understood what the hours are. Again, these are fourth graders. They were definitely able to follow along. In fact, one of my girls was like, well, technically there aren't always 24 hours in a day. And we got into a brief discussion about when it's summer and the days are longer, or when it's winter and sometimes the days are shorter and just the earth spinning. But I told her that was very advanced. And so we were just doing basic time telling for her peers who weren't as advanced as her. So this is kind of what we went over. And then after working with the clock that was a circle, I let them know, again, not all clocks are circles. You have some clocks that are in the shape of a square, some in the shape of a triangle. But if you can always remember that at the very top there's a 12, at the bottom there's a 6, to the right there's a 3, and to the left there's a 9, then you'll always know where the numbers are placed. And so I left some of the spaces blank so that they could practice writing the numbers in, and then again, doing different examples with the short hand and the larger hand where they could identify the minutes. Now, I'm going to bring the circle clock back up because as I was teaching them, I was reminded of how there are patterns everywhere. There's patterns everywhere in life, in our day-to-day. If we know that the 12 represents 0, the 1 represents 5 minutes, the 2, 10 minutes, the 3, 15 minutes, the 4, 20 minutes, the 5, 25 minutes, the 6, 30 minutes, the 7, 35 minutes, the 8, 40 minutes, the 9, 45 minutes, and the 10, 50 minutes, and you keep going. I asked them, what is the pattern that you notice with these numbers? I asked them to really think about the minutes. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. What is something that all these numbers have in common? And one of my students took a guess, and they were really close, but we basically came to the conclusion that all of the minutes are multiples of 5. My fourth graders were working on their multiplication and their division. Some of them were at a higher level than others, but I basically just encouraged them that even if they may find math boring, math is everywhere. It took math to create the chair that we sit on. It took math to create maybe the lotion that they wear, the car that their parents drive, the medicine that they may have to take. A doctor had to make sure they use the right amount of one chemical and the right amount of another chemical and that they matched. But I told them even with the clock, multiplication comes in because all these minutes share a multiple of 5. So that's just an example of me trying to teach my fourth graders how to tell time so they don't always look at my watch and ask me, but that they'll be able to look on their own. I also wanted to teach them about this as well, because I let them know, I'm very honest with my students that, hey, we have a schedule. Like, even I have a boss, and I have to make sure that I arrive certain places on time. So I gave them a little exercise where I said, okay, we're in the classroom. We have to be at this other classroom at a certain time. And I gave them the time. I told them, you have 15 minutes to clean up and it takes 5 minutes to walk. What time should we start cleaning up? And then they were taking a guess. Like, let's say we had to be somewhere at 4 p.m. And I told them 15 minutes to clean up, 5 minutes to walk to the next classroom. What time should we start cleaning up? And again, if we have to be at this other classroom at 4 p.m., the correct answer would be 3:40. So I do exercises like that. I really look forward to this opportunity. I hope that you've been able to get an impression about me. I love music. I love performing. I love children. I have experience working with them numerous times at summer camp, after school activities. Most recently with the Boys and Girls Club, I've worked with fourth graders and they're very dear to my heart, but I've also worked with junior high. So yes. Oh, you asked about if I knew what TEFLA is. I haven't taken a TEFLA course. I'm not certified in that yet, but I do know it takes a lot of hours. I know that it basically stands for teaching a foreign language, teaching English as a foreign language in another classroom. And I know it definitely opens up opportunities for people to travel and teach overseas. So I'm definitely open and willing to get this certification so that I can come teach overseas and teach specifically in China. I'm just going to grab my notes, make sure I answered all your questions. Nationality, American, African American, again, born in Chicago. My hobbies, flute playing, drawing, writing poetry. I love watching scientific documentaries because education is really important to me. And even though I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I still enjoy exposing myself to what research is happening out there. And then I normally share little tidbits with my children because kids are very curious. They like to know how things work. So my work experience outside of working with youth, I basically have 9 years of experience working in retail. So I've worked at different department stores. I've worked at a restaurant called Nando's Peri Peri. I've worked in Puerto Rico. I worked in Puerto Rico for 7 months. I also studied abroad in Mexico for a month. But probably my most unique work experience was working in Puerto Rico for 7 months. And that's where I got to practice speaking Spanish. And another job experience I have that's been significant to me is each tax season I get an opportunity to be a financial capability manager for a nonprofit. This nonprofit seeks to empower low-income individuals and families with knowledge about how to move up the economic ladder and basically how to be financially capable. So I'm one of their operational managers, and basically each tax season I get to interact with up to 2,000 clients to try to encourage them to save part of their tax refund. I help them learn about savings bonds and savings accounts, talk to them about their credit score. But basically, I'm there because for us here in America, after we pay taxes throughout the year, we get an opportunity to get some of that back, especially if we overpaid. A lot of people already have in their mind how they want to spend their money. So my job is just to encourage people to save. So that's an overview of my work experience, why I'd like to teach in China, how I think it'd be beneficial for me, and how I just love to come to your country and basically get to know what's happening there on a personal level and get to interact with the youth and help these kids expand their horizons, just like I had an opportunity to have my horizons expanded at a young age. I definitely know it makes you a better adult the more experience you have. So thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll end it with some more flute playing. And I'll definitely be bringing my flutes. So have a great day.